Let's take a look at these works. Don't they feel less like traditional paintings by an artist and more like pieces of graffiti peeled straight off a wall? In fact, this artist really did begin by painting on the streets and walls. He brought these acts, what we call graffiti, into the world of fine art. And in doing so, helped shape an entirely new genre. Today's Look Into focuses on an artist often called a scribble painter who burst onto the New York art scene in the early 1980s like a comet, and in just 27 short years of life left a powerful mark on the history of contemporary art. Jean-Michel Basquiat. Basquiat did not begin as a painter. He started by leaving short phrases and sharp messages on the walls of Soho in New York, signing them with the name Samo. Those lines felt like poetry, like protest, and sometimes like questions aimed at society itself. He wasn't drawing images, he was writing thoughts. Graffiti was not decoration, it was declaration. The walls were his notebook, the city was his first canvas. By the early 1980s, he rose rapidly to the center of New York's gallery scene. Collectors gathered. Audiences were electrified by his raw energy. Around this time, he met the pop art icon Andy Warhol. Warhol recognized Basquiat's talent instantly. To Basquiat, Warhol became both mentor and shield. Together they created collaborative works mixing painting, silkscreen, and graffiti. It was the collision of youthful street energy with the system of an already established master. Yet at the same time, Basquiat began to feel trapped by the label Warhol's protege, worried that his own identity might disappear behind it. Still, this moment mattered. It was when graffiti truly entered museums, and Basquiat was among the first and strongest to tear open that boundary. Success in his early 20s, worldwide recognition, and death at 27. Too much arrived too quickly. After Warhol passed away, Basquiat slipped into deeper isolation. His career continued to rise, but the center that held him together was gone. In 1988, he died from a drug overdose. He had traveled from the streets to the very top of the art world, and everything ended in a moment. Yet his work is still alive, because his paintings do not stay within personal emotion. They carry the noise and anger of the city, the history of race, and the atmosphere of 1980s New York itself. His art still tells us this is not just one artist's story. It is the story of an era that began on the streets and entered the institution. Now let's look at his work once more. Among the scattered symbols, the overlapping drawings and words, don't you hear something quietly sad? Between the traces of everything he poured out in such a short time, among those layered fragments of emotion, doesn't it feel like an artist racing forward without ever checking the speedometer? Basquiat's surfaces are not tidy. Too many stories pour out at once. That's why his paintings feel accessible and yet impossible to fully understand. He wasn't trying to create beauty. He was scratching his era directly onto the surface. Images born on the streets and carried into museums. Too much success, even more burnout, and a life that stopped at 27. This is not graffiti. This is the record of a human being amid a portrait left behind by a city in its time. And once again, we are left with the same question. Is what we see really all there is?